Okay, everybody. Yeah, good evening. Thank you very much for giving us this opportunity. Thanks to Nature on Tap as well. I see most people have at least got something on tap to enjoy while I'm speaking tonight. You know, John, you hit the nail on the head when you said it's important to talk about other species that are not usually in the limelight. And we are all very fortunate to be living in a town that is full of wildlife enthusiasts, people that love nature, and they don't want to see what we have in our own back gardens disappear. But very sadly so, reptiles and amphibians are often left out of the limelight in favor of more sort of charismatic species, particularly the bigger mammalian sort of megafauna. And so what I really hope to achieve by speaking tonight is to showcase exactly what it is that we do at Hoedspruit Reptile Centre, because not a lot of people know what goes on behind the scenes. And also, on our own admission, we're not terribly good at social media. That is mostly because we have a very important job to do, and that is protect and preserve reptiles and amphibians. So we kind of focus on that. Yes, we could do a lot better at getting this message out, and that's precisely why I'm here tonight. So, without any further ado, I'd like to introduce all the different things that we're doing. And admittedly, it's not everything that we're doing because I do have a time limit. Rain is possibly on the way, but I've distilled it down to the most important conservation projects that we're currently looking into at Hoedspruit Reptile Centre. Okay, before I get started though, a quick history lesson. Who was here in 1984? Put up your hand. Don't be shy. Who was here in 1984 when the reptile park first opened as Swadini Reptile Park? That's what it used to look like. And for those of you that have got really sharp eyes, 1 Rand 50 for children and 2 Rand 50 for adults. That was the entry fee way back in 1984. Now we've come a long way since then. But the problem is we still have a long way to go because we are incredibly far away from achieving balance when it comes to people's understanding of reptiles and their appreciation, which further highlights the importance of the work that we're going to be doing. So these are the current conservation initiatives that we have on the go. I'm not going to stick to the order that they appear in on the screen. This is sort of a chronological order of how they all materialize. But for the most part, there's so much more that happens. We're not just a zoo. I like to think of ourselves as a conservation facility that's open to the public. And then I scratch my head a little bit and I think, well, that kind of is a zoo, right? That's what zoos do. Conservation, they support conservation in different ways, and people are able to go see the animals on display. Nevertheless, so if I describe what it is that we do, if I take inspiration from our ethos, which is conservation through education and research, that is essentially the areas that we focus on. And by far the most overwhelming part of what we do is the education side. That's about 60%, 70% of what we do. The rest of it is made up of research. So I'll start with the research component because that's the smallest of the bit. And why exactly is it important for us to participate in research? Well, very simply, the more we understand about the animals, the better we can advise policymakers, the better our laws can become, and the better we can support conservation in a broader sort of sense. So we really need to participate and support researchers as best as we can. Now, how we do that at HRC is we conduct both in situ and ex situ conservation projects. We assist with data collection, sometimes with biological sample collections as well, if that's what the research project is about. And then we also facilitate land access. Now, it's not always easy for researchers tucked away in the university somewhere to gain access to the animals that they need to study. And that's because, of course, as we know, a lot of the land in South Africa is privately owned. So unless you know somebody that can facilitate that land access, there's a huge gap in the potential research environment. So we assist with that as well. From time to time, we also keep research specimens at HRC. It's not something we routinely do, but not all of the research that we participate in focuses on wild animals. Some of it focuses on perhaps the physiology or the temperature of animals in a controlled environment, captive settings. And so we participate in that as well. And from time to time, we also help with the authorship of scientific publications. So that is, in a nutshell, what we do when it comes to research. Our role really is to facilitate researchers. The picture that you see on the screen here, Just for some context, is Potch University, the Herp Health Lab, looking at microbiomes of reptiles. We did a lot of sampling of different animal cloacas, reptile cloacas, as well as their mouths, to try and get a better understanding of the micro animals that are actually living inside reptiles. And then, of course, you can see that we're affiliated with the majority of the major herp labs and universities in South Africa as well. I'm very proud and excited to announce tonight as well the creation of our research labs coming in 2026. When exactly in 2026 they will be built, I'm not sure yet. But for the longest time, you people might realize this, but if you go to the snake park, you'll see there's a big old dilapidated building at the front. That's been there for over 30 years, and it's had all kinds of different functions over the years. It was a spaza shop, it was a pretty successful art gallery at one stage as well. But the Reptile Centre really lacked a research resource, and we finally got the funding together to be able to renovate this building, and this is kind of what it looks like. So we're going to be putting a roof on the top of the structure, and then inside is going to be 3 separate research labs along with some office space for researchers to process the data that they collect. This will be, to the best of my knowledge, the only facility of its kind in South Africa that is solely dedicated to supporting the research, laboratory research on reptiles. And that is going to be in Hoedspruit. So that's fantastic, and it's going to be a wonderful opportunity for us to contribute even more towards the scientific endeavors of others. Well done. Thank you. All right, on to the juicy stuff. The by far biggest component of what we do is sort of situated within the education field. And that is really important because most people have a preconceived idea about reptiles. You know, they're cold-blooded, they're scaly, they've got no personality, no feelings, they're just these animals that exist, which could not be further from the truth. And a lot of people live their lives in literal fear because of what they think they know about reptiles. So it's up to us to shed light on sometimes some uneasy topics, and this is why a huge component of what we do is focusing on actual education itself. Now, since 1984, since the centre first opened, we've had a whole host of different kinds of educational tours and training that's on offer, from school groups which visit the centre on a fairly regular basis to in-person private tours. We also do a lot of different kinds of training, whether it's snake capture courses, we have a reptile medicine course, we have a husbandry course, we even have photographic safaris. So those of you that are in the crowd tonight that are photographers and are desperate to get up close to the black mamba, come and see me afterwards. Does anybody know what lizard this is? Has anybody seen this lizard before? Shout it out if you think you know what it is. Okay, it's a sun gazer lizard. In Afrikaans, we call it an oorvolk. Okay, well done if you guys got the name of that lizard. Now, one of the more focused conservation projects that we do is supporting sun gazer conservation. Okay, Smaug giganteus, the genus nicknamed after Smaug the dragon. If you've read The Hobbit and you know the story about Tolkien and his journey from South Africa writing the book, there's a beautiful reason why this lizard's genus was named Smaug. If you want to hear more about that, then I'll be happy to talk about that. Come and see me afterwards. But nevertheless, we support sun gazer conservation in a number of different ways. First of all, HRC is part of what is called the Sun Gazer Working Group, and it's a collection of interested parties that don't want to see this lizard disappear off the planet, and we are heading in that direction, just like many other animals. So these parties all meet together and we try to figure out the best possible scenario when it comes to this lizard's conservation. Now, it is threatened by a multitude of different things, the biggest being habitat transformation and habitat degradation by agricultural and mining activities, and that is because this lizard only lives in grasslands and it's completely restricted to the Free State province as well as a small area in KZN as well as in Mpumalanga. But it's an endemic lizard. It's found nowhere else on the planet, and it's the most unusual looking lizard you've ever seen, okay, because of all these big spikes. Now, if I look at the IUCN Red List, they classify this lizard's conservation status as vulnerable. And whenever you hear the word vulnerable, you kind of think, okay, well, it could be worse. You know, it's not endangered, it's not critically endangered, it's not doing too bad. But by their own definition, I just want to draw your attention to what it actually says. It is considered to be facing a high risk of extinction in the wild. This lizard is in trouble. Okay, and if we don't do something now, it's going to disappear. It's always a hard sell to people living in Hoedspruit because we don't find them here. It's not something that when you go to Kruger Park, you're going to see. But believe me, this is a very special animal and it's absolutely worthy of protecting. In South Africa, it is also a CITES Appendix II animal, and it is also covered and protected by TOPS, which is the Threatened or Protected Species Regulations. Okay, so there are some protections, but the reality is very different. If you look at the sort of contextual protections versus the protection on the ground, they are very disconnected. So people not only just absolutely farm and mine on the land where this lizard is found, it's also to a lesser extent poached out of the wild for the use in the medicinal trade, or that's the least of this lizard's concerns. The other big problem that they have is people are poaching these lizards for pets. I'm not going to go too much on this topic. I'd love to come back and talk about it another day. But believe it or not, folks, Hoedspruit is a hot location for reptile poachers. And this is probably something that you've never heard of before. Why are people coming to Hoedspruit to steal our reptiles and our lizards and our snakes? Because we have a lot of them and we have a lot of very interesting species. And it often goes unnoticed. Anyway, so we partnered with Wild in Africa back in about 2019 to create what is the first conservation bracelet ever for reptile species in South Africa. Okay, now, let me tell you guys, that's a very sad achievement in actual fact, okay? Because there are conservation bracelets and all kinds of support mechanisms for so many other kinds of animals, but there's nothing for reptiles. So luckily, Shannon's a big, strong supporter of the work that we do at the center, and she was very open to the idea of creating one of these bracelets for this lizard. By the way, if you haven't been to her shop, she's got one here at the where the farmers markets is. Go and have a look, because not only does Wild in Africa support our sun gazer conservation bracelets, they also support a whole host of other animals that desperately need financial aid. And as you can see here, 50% of the money that is generated through these very high quality bracelets are in fact donated back towards the causes. And on that note, guys, the curio shop, the little tiny curio shop at HRC last year generated 35,000 Rand just in the sales of this bracelet. I do have bracelets with me tonight. If you'd like to buy one, I've got my Yoko machine and I've got you covered, okay? But I will tell you, it's not a cheap little $60 bracelet, okay? It comes with a pretty decent price tag, but it is worth every single cent, okay? Yes, they are available tonight. The second thing is that we further support sun gazer conservation at HRC by creating a whole host of other branded items. These you can only get at the curio shop at the Snake Park. I don't have any of these with me tonight, but we've partnered with Lizard, the Lizard brand that you've seen around town. They make coffee mugs and all kinds of water bottles. That is another partnership that we're busy exploring, and hopefully we'll have items available in the shop very soon. Okay, so to go one step further, we are also part of the captive breeding attempt for the sun gazer lizard. Now, one of the things that make them so difficult to protect and preserve is that they don't breed in captivity at all. It's only been achieved a handful of times throughout the world, and most of the cases where people have claimed to have bred these lizards, it's the case of a gravid female that give birth to one ginormous live baby that has come in illegally through the pet trade and given birth in captivity, and that's what people are claiming as being bred in captivity. The National Zoo last year, or it was the year before, I could be wrong, managed to breed them for the first time in captivity. So a lot of groundwork has been done with this lizard, but the problem is, we need to crack the code for breeding this lizard before it's too late. One cannot start breeding animals for insurance populations when they're already at critical endangered status. We need to start now while they're invulnerable so that we can learn how to do it, that should the situation not improve, that we can do something well before it becomes a real problem. So the aims of our participation is to contribute towards the sun gazer husbandry manual, so we know exactly what keeps them happy in captivity, and of course also establish these insurance populations. By having these animals at Hoedspruit Reptile Centre, we can also facilitate further research that may be needed on them, at the very least within a captive setting, and of course continue our public education drives, especially when it comes to people keeping exotic pets as reptiles as pets. And if anyone is sitting here today that likes the idea of keeping an exotic reptile as a pet, I have to say I do relate. That's how I started off my love with reptiles. Many people go that way, but there's a very dark side to the animal trade when it comes to reptiles, and you should scrutinize very carefully the source of where your animals are coming from, especially when it comes to reptiles. Now, at the centre, we have designated an area for our new sun gazer display. If you've been to the snake park, this is located between the giant plated lizard enclosure and the rock monitor enclosure. And currently in our possession at the moment, we have 3 of these fantastic lizards, which are all in quarantine at the moment, and they will hopefully be available for the public to come and see these animals this December. So come and have a look. See what these lizards are all about, and should you feel the need to support us further with our endeavors, then you can definitely do that. The next thing I'd like to move on and start discussing is our reptile rescue, rehabilitation and relocation program. Has anyone here ever had a snake in their garden that they needed help with? You can put up your hand. Okay, I see a bunch of hands going up. Here's the thing, guys. We live in Hoedspruit, and this place is full of snakes. And I don't say that to make anybody worried. I'm saying that because that is the reality. We have a very good climate, we've got a very high diversity of reptile species, and our snakes are generally doing pretty okay. So we have an abundance of snakes, and sometimes that means that they end up in sort of less than desirable locations, in somebody's house, in the place of business, sometimes at the school, that sort of thing. So for the longest time, the Reptile Centre has offered a free service to the community of Hoedspruit when it comes to reptile rescues. So guys, we are available 24/7, 365 days a year. When you run a facility like ours and you have to look after animals and their welfare is entirely our responsibility, there's no off days. You can't just think, I'm not going to go to work today, because you can't. The animals need feeding and they need cleaning and they need taking care of. So there will always be someone at the snake park available to assist in reptile relocations, okay? And it is for free, and I really mean that. I believe that this is a community service that we self-obligated, but that we are obligated to provide Hoedspruit. You shouldn't be charging for a service like this, and we will come to your house and to your business or to your school, and we will help you, okay? What you need and what we need from you is to contact us. So there's the landline number, there's also the WhatsApp number, but please, ladies and gentlemen, can I ask that if you have a black mamba in your living room, don't send me a WhatsApp. Because it's an emergency, okay? Don't send me a message on Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or any other of these other social media platforms. In an emergency, guys, please pick up the phone. It will get answered and we will be able to assist you. Our WhatsApp lines and our social media are not monitored, we're not sitting there at the park staring at our computers waiting for these sort of things to happen. But if you do need help, give us a call and we'll be on our way as soon as we can. Okay, so on that note, I thought I would go through some tips on what to do if you find, maybe not if, but when you find a cobra in your house or a boom slung in your garden, something like that. And with some inspiration from Halloween, which is around the corner, who are you going to call? Hoedspruit Reptile. Oh, how did that get in there? While we're on the topic, guys, we do have a Halloween event towards the end of the month. It's a lot of fun. If you've got kids or grandkids, come and spend the evening with us trick-or-treating. It's our annual Snake Park in the Dark event, so bring your torches, prepare yourselves for lots of candy, and also a good opportunity to learn a little bit about the animals that are at the centre. Okay, so if you don't know what to do with the kids yet, come and support the Reptile Centre. Okay, back onto what should you do if you find a snake at home, okay? First thing you're going to do is keep calm. Now, I know that's easy for me to say standing up here, but when you're in the audience and you really are perhaps quite afraid of what might happen, then it's difficult. But just remember, everybody, snakes are scared of people. They don't want to interact with you for the simple reason that if they are close enough to bite you, you are close enough to retaliate and kill that snake. And the snake realizes this. So it does not benefit a snake in any way, shape or form to risk any kind of interaction with a person. So take a deep breath, try to stay calm, and then give the snake park a shout. Okay. In the meantime, while we are collecting information on the phone with you, do not approach the snake. You need to keep a visual on the animal, but don't approach it. And the safe distance is about 3 meters. Okay, that's maybe a little bit closer than what you and I are. The reason why we say don't approach the snake, everyone, is that your interaction with that snake might end up scaring that snake, which it almost certainly will do because snakes are scared of us, into a more difficult environment. So perhaps what would have taken only 2 minutes for us to remove the snake from underneath the couch, because you approached it, it now went under the fridge and it's stuck into the internal mechanisms of your refrigerator. That is a lot more challenging. So please don't approach the snake, keep watch of the snake. And if it moves, that's okay. Remember that these things are living and breathing animals, and they've got eyes. They can see you coming, and they can also detect your vibrations. So if you move around, again, you might make the situation worse. Please don't try to capture the snake yourself. Please don't try to kill the snake. Rest assured, we are on our way. And please keep sight of that animal as best you can until help arrives. If you lose sight of it, that's okay. Catching a snake typically doesn't take very long, and it's normally not overly filled with drama. There's lots of television programs out there which over dramatize a snake rescue. Have you guys seen the one on, is it National Geographic? A couple of guys in KZN, not going to say the name of the program. It never happens like that. When you go in a real snake call out, there's the snake, tongs, bucket, done, back to the snake park. But what takes a long time is to look for the snake if somebody doesn't keep an eye on it. Okay, so please do that. All right, and then just a plea to the town as well. We are in a very fortunate position in Hoedspruit. I'm going to touch on this a little bit later, that we actually have a lot of snake catchers in Hoedspruit. So please, everybody, if you've called multiple snake rescuers, please remember to follow up on those calls, because what tends to happen is everyone jumps to help you. And then you don't call the rest of the people that are already mobilized. And it represents a huge loss of time and income, especially for a facility like this, because we waste the petrol, we waste the time, we've got to make a staff member available to go do there, and then you get there and somebody else has already caught the snake. So please support all the snake rescuers. Let's make sure that the priority is the snake, and that the snake is rescued, and that the person feels safe and comfortable. But do us a favor, follow up on those calls and make sure that you don't have everyone running around. Okay, I thought I would share some statistics with you very shortly about our 2024 and 2025 reptile season. Mozambique spitting cobras are by far the most common snakes, with 25 and 22 respectively. Remember that we have not yet really gotten a full grip on the 2025 summer season. That's coming still now. Black mambas 21 and 16, Southern African pythons 15 and 10. I'd also like to draw your attention to the high number of rehabilitation cases that we see. People are often more accepting in delivering an injured snake to the reptile park if they know that it's harmless. Nobody really brings you an injured cobra or injured black mamba for lots of different reasons. Then snouted cobras 12 and 15, boomslang 12 and 10, monitor lizards 10 and 3, and of course here we don't really do a lot of flapneck chameleon rescues, but what we do a lot of is rehabilitation work, and that's usually from cars as well as domestic pets that end up driving over the chameleon or dog biting it, something like that. Now, part of our rescue program is the rehabilitation side of the things that we do, and I have to say that HRC is in a very, very fortunate position that my wife happens to be a veterinarian, and she happens to be a specialist reptile veterinarian, which I can almost guarantee you no other privately owned small conservation center like HRC has access to. So when we took over the reptile center in 2019, what we were able to bring to the town is something that not a lot of other institutions are able to do. And the spin-off effect of this is that our rehabilitation and release rate has skyrocketed. You know, in the old days, I used to work at the snake park many, many times before I came back to Hoedspruit. But in the old days, we used to try as best as we can to fix up these animals before releasing them back in the wild. But our hit ratio now, when it comes to successful surgeries, is much higher. So on that note, folks, if you have injured reptiles, bring them to the snake park for free. Okay, if you want to support our efforts and help cover the vet costs, then you're more than welcome to do so. But please bring them to us. Let us fix them up and do our best to get them back out in the wild. One of the other things that we do during this entire rescue, rehabilitation and release process is we take samples for SANBI. SANBI is the South African National Biodiversity Institute, and we have a partnership with SANBI to create a biobank of reptiles in Hoedspruit. And there's two very important reasons why we do this. First off, the samples that are made available are then made further available to researchers. Genetic samples are really important when you look at finer genetic studies and family trees of different reptiles, and there's almost nothing in terms of national sampling from Hoedspruit. So every time we rescue an animal, we weigh it, we sex it, we measure it, we give it a clean bill of health, but we also take a scale clipping to add to the biobank. Okay. The second very, very important reason why we do this relates back to the poaching that happens in Hoedspruit. In the last year, we have been involved in two separate incidences where animals have been poached from Hoedspruit, okay, stolen out of the wild. And luckily, the authorities had intercepted and caught these people and had a whole bunch of snakes and things left over. Now, the problem is if you don't have a genetic sample of where that animal is, you cannot release it back into the wild. So for us, it's very important to collect as many samples of as many different species as possible so that we can build this genetic blueprint of the reptiles in Hoedspruit. Then, on rare occasion, when the authorities do apprehend a suspect and, they do what they need to do, we can release the animals. Okay, so it means that there's a bit of a happy ending. Without that, they end up permanently in captivity and in many cases euthanized and bottled and sent to a museum, which has its own pros and cons, but nevertheless, if you find dead reptiles in your house, if you accidentally hit one in the car, something like that, please bring it to us so that we can utilize that carcass as a genetic sample. Okay, so something else that we do. Then you may know this, Hoedspruit Reptile Centre also has an anti-venom bank. You guys have heard of the anti-venom shortage in South Africa? Yes. Okay, for the last 5 years, even longer, a lot of people have been concerned about it, and rightly so, because only snakebite anti-venom is able to be used in the treatment of snakebite. Nothing else works. Okay, there's lots of old wives' tales and myth, but the thing that you need is antivenom. Now, currently in our stock at the antivenom bank, we have SAVP, polyvalent and monovalent antivenom. That is polyvalent for most of the dangerous snakes and monovalent for the boomslang. We have all of this in stock. What we don't have in stock is Parabuthus antivenom. There's pretty much none in the country. So on that note, guys, please, if you're going to walk around at night, close shoes, carry a torch, don't accidentally stand on a Parabuthus. If there's anyone here in the audience that has done that in the past, you know how friggin' painful this is. I actually see two people. I know my wife stood on one a little while ago. So guys, don't put yourself in that situation. They are also our neighbors. Then on its way to HRC currently is also an Indian antivenom called Pan-Af. It has been used on more than 100 different occasions with snake bites in South Africa up to date. And it seems to be a pretty effective antivenom, and it's pretty good at neutralizing the effects of snake bites. It's a more refined product, so you tend to need twice the volume. But in any case, we will have a stock of antivenom. Now, the onus is still on the vets and the hospitals to stock their own, but if we get into a situation where there is none, then we have you covered, okay? There's some T's and C's involved in all of this, but rest assured that we have Hoedspruit well looked after for the time being. We have enough antivenom probably to survive this snake season, and then it's gone. Then we'll need to fundraise to restock. Now, I know that it sounds like we already do quite a lot. There's two more things that I wanted to finish up on. And before I start with our most ambitious conservation project, I would like to introduce to you the problem of human-snake conflict, okay? What I'm talking about here is the fact that snakes have been living on the planet for hundreds of thousands of years, literally, but they've also been living alongside people. And on rare occasion, snake and man come together and it doesn't always end well, okay? Now, typically, the cycle starts with sometimes an inherent fear or hatred of snakes, okay? And I'll talk a little bit more about this a little bit later. But people are scared of snakes, not necessarily of the snake itself, but of the consequences of a snake bite, okay? And in these instances, especially in communities where people are overly frightened of snakes, when people are encouraged in a way to negatively interact with snakes. How do you think most people deal with a snake in their home or in the village? Kill it, throw a brick on it. Exactly, that's what most people feel about snakes. Now, the problem is the second I try and catch or kill a snake, it's going to retaliate. It doesn't want to be hit with a brick or boiling hot water poured all over it. Sometimes people douse them in petrol and light them on fire, shoot them with pellet guns and catties, you name it. People go to extraordinary lengths to try and kill these animals. Nevertheless, there's an interaction with the snake, okay? Negative interaction. And what that results in most of the time is a snake bite. Now, as soon as there's a snake bite in the community, the effects of that snake bite are actually far felt. Not just with the victim, but also the victim's families. And in a way, this trauma and the disability that the victim feels actually contributes to a greater social economic problem. What I mean by that, so I'm a farm worker. I get bitten on the leg by something like a spitting cobra or puff adder, cytotoxic venom, sullen tissue destroying, very painful and irreversible negative effects if I don't get to treatment, right? So the whole flesh on the side of my ankle is affected, my ligaments are affected, my tendons are affected, and as a result, I lose the ability to walk normally, okay? And that is going to make me far less employable than somebody else. So the breadwinner of the family is often affected by this. Now I can't provide for my family, I can't pay school fees, I can't put shoes on my children, I can't do all kinds of things, all right? And the family that witnesses this snake bite is also put through a tremendous amount of psychological trauma. It takes weeks and weeks of surgery and the skin just needing to be debrided and cut back over and over. I'm not saying this to scare anybody, okay? The point that I'm trying to make is that the effects of snake bite are very far-reaching, okay? And so the cycle perpetuates. Now that I've witnessed this, I'm more likely to fear snakes. If I'm more fearful of these animals, I'm more likely to try and kill one, and so it goes round and round. Now, the aim of our most ambitious project, or the aim of the most ambitious project, is to reduce human-snake conflict by creating and implementing a science-based educational system, okay? And to do that, it all focuses once again around education. We need to show people how you should respond if you encounter a snake, what you should do if you're bitten by a snake, etc. And with education comes a positive image of snakes and snake awareness, and through that you can see a decrease in snake bites, okay? And with that, of course, comes fewer deaths and fewer disabilities. So it is a cycle that can be broken, but it takes a lot of effort, which we're not afraid to do because this is why we get up in the morning. Something interesting about snakebite occurrences, though, if you have a look at the screen here, some people are bitten by snakes by accident. I'm talking about somebody walking in the veld accidentally standing on a cobra while it's moving through the grass, or picking up a pile of wood and the snake is hiding in there. Very few percentage of people are actually bitten accidentally by a snake. The far greater sort of occurrence is with people trying to kill snakes and people trying to catch snakes. So just a word of caution, when you participate in a snake capture course, okay, of which we do at the center, but there's many other service providers that you can do this with, just remember that you as a freshly trained snake rescuer are at the highest likelihood of being bitten by a snake, because you now know how to catch a snake, but you don't yet have the experience, and you'll never get enough experience with a one-day snake capture course. Okay, so just be aware that yes, we need snake rescuers in Hoedspruit. We want as many as possible so that people are always available to help, but you need to be very careful. The second or the last thing that I'd like to describe is the working professionals. People like myself, people like my team, we work with snakes every single day. So we put ourselves at risk. And so there is a percentage of people that get bitten by snakes, but just statistically, because we work with these animals every single day, we're more likely than anyone else to get bitten. Now, the most interesting thing about all of this, okay, it is human behavior-based negative interactions. Okay, so the people that are working with snakes, nobody forced me to get up and go do snake rescues. I choose to do that. I'm aware of the consequences and the risks. And all snake rescuers feel this way. We love these animals so much, but we are aware of the risks. Nobody's forcing us. That's our decision. People that are catching snakes and killing snakes, it's also a human decision. Somebody made the decision to pick up the brick and throw it at the snake. Or made the decision to say, okay, well, I don't really know what I'm doing, but I'm going to push this snake in the wheelie bin with a broom. Okay, no one forced you to do that. And even accidents, to a certain extent, are influenced by human behavior, because you could take precautionary measurements, like picking up that pile of wood with a thick pair of gloves, choosing to wear appropriate clothing and shoes when you're walking in the bush, carrying a torch at night. So lots of accidents can be avoided if you proactively make some decisions. Okay, so these are some very important principles to have a look at. So we decided in 2019 to create SECAP. It stands for Snake Education and Community Awareness Program. SECAP is basically the vehicle that we use to address human-snake conflict in Hoedspruit and the greater Hoedspruit area. It consists of two key organizations, Save the Snakes from the US, of which one of our partners, Hiral Naik, is here tonight. You might know Hiral. Put up his hand and say hi. And of course, Hoedspruit Reptile Centre is the other mechanism that drives this conservation education program. I'm going to take you very briefly through all of the different sub-projects that SECAP encompasses, okay? Because SECAP is very important and it does a lot, okay? So the first thing is we have our Rural Schools project. We have a bunch of different partners. Of late, our most relevant partners are the Timbavati Foundation and also the Global Conservation Corps. If there's anyone here from those organizations, guys, thank you for your continued support. Without these organizations, we wouldn't have the easy access to the rural schools that we need. But the reason why we target rural schools is that not everyone in Hoedspruit or in this area can simply go to the reptile center to learn about snakes. And it always amazes me that communities that live in high snake areas, it's not part of your syllabus to learn about snakes or snake safety because it's such a small percentage of people when you consider the entire country. Yet these people are exposed to the risks of snake bite all the time. So we go to schools, we deliver our education message, and we do all of this, folks, for free. We don't charge. How can you charge in this kind of charitable kind of instance? So of course it costs the centre money. Okay, we've got to get there, we've got to use the vehicle, we've got diesel, we've got staff availability, salaries, all this kind of stuff. But it's important that we do this, okay? So our schools project is a big part of what we do. We also have what we call the Communities Project, which is very similar to the Schools Project, only this time we're leveraging any existing conservation programs that are in the area. So you could have a program about safe sexual practices. You could have a program about keeping your environment clean and free of litter. Whatever it is that you are passionate about, if you have an audience, then you can reach out to us and we piggyback on that audience and deliver our message of snake safety and human-snake conflict mitigation. In this picture here, we were working with Nourish. I think everybody knows Nourish. We also go visit our local hospitals. We've been to the Hoedspruit Private Hospital. We've been to the hospital in Bushbuck Ridge, Tsenin Mediclinic, and of course down the road as well as Tinswali Hospital. We visit these hospitals and clinics multiple times in the snake season in order to best connect doctors with snake experts. And we're definitely not teaching the doctors or telling the doctors what to do because they're the medical professionals. But we need to create a link so that we can better support snakebite victims. It's something that is very easily and often overlooked in South Africa. And once again, we do all of this multiple times a year for free. Okay. Next up is our snake relocation project. It's slightly different to our Hoedspruit Reptile Centre's relocation, rehabilitation and rescue service. This focuses on upskilling local people in local villages with the skills that they need to be able to do relocations in their own village. And I said it before, but Hoedspruit Reptile Centre is not the only people now that do snake rescues, but still, whilst there is an abundance of snake rescuers in Hoedspruit, we do not have that luxury in some of our outlying communities. So we cannot get to all of the snake rescues, and so the intention here is to train up specific individuals with the skills that they need to be able to remove snakes from people's homes, and again, also that people don't feel they have no choice and they have to kill the snake. That's what people often think. Okay, so that also is an important cog in our little machine. Now, we've also spent a long time creating free learning material that is both available offline and online. With me today, I've got a selection of different posters. Ladies and gentlemen, they're absolutely for free, so please come and see me if you want one. You can have as many as you want. Please don't abuse it. But we have, we started off with our medically important venomous snakes of Hoedspruit poster, which was then followed up by the common snakes of Hoedspruit, common lizards of Hoedspruit, and now also common frogs of Hoedspruit. All of these posters are available for free download from our website, but if you want a physical copy, I'm going to stand here for quite a bit after I speak tonight, and I can just hand them out. So please don't leave tonight with perhaps without taking advantage of some of these valuable resources. The other thing that we've done is we've partnered with a local author, Ruan Stander, otherwise known as the Herp Nomad. And we helped him publish his first book on reptiles, titled The Reptiles of the Limpopo Province and Kruger National Park. These are also available for sale tonight. It's an excellent book, and if you have snakes and lizards in your collection, you definitely want to add this. So we were able to support Ruan in publishing this, and Ruan, in return, very graciously donated 20 copies of this book for us to give away for free to our rural schools program within the context of our SECAP initiative. And then finally, we've also been in the background working on a whole host of different posters, which we will share mostly online, and they all are centered around snakes and snake safety. Okay, so this has also been quite a challenge, but education, most of us have to pay for it, but when it comes to snake bite mitigation, it really should be free, and we're trying to get this out to people as much as possible. Okay, this is where I need help, ladies and gentlemen. When you go to rural communities, especially schools, it's not enough that you just teach people about snakes and snake safety. You need to leave people with something that has a longer lasting impact, okay? And often a flyer or even a poster eventually gets damaged and ends up in the trash. So what we were able to do with the help of the guys from Rhino Revolution, so thanks very much if you're here tonight, we're able to create the first of its kind snake t-shirts, which we hand out to schools. Okay, now the intention of this and the inspiration behind it is from our political people in the government. You know, if you want to win an election, you give people t-shirts. But the point here is that on the front is what to do if you see a snake. On the back is what to do if you are bitten by a snake. And every single student, our aim, our intention is to leave behind every single student one of these t-shirts. Nobody's going to throw away a t-shirt, and then just by proxy, if I'm talking to my neighbor about snakes, they're going to see these snake images on my t-shirt, then there's going to be indirect learning that takes place as well. So please, ladies and gentlemen, we desperately need a lot more t-shirts to give away to a lot more kids out there, and if you're wanting to donate, then you can come and speak to me after it. So thanks again to the Rhino Revolution guys. Okay, coming up in 2026 is our farm workers project. Many farm workers are bitten by snakes, not within the greater scheme of things, but farm workers are at risk, especially in rural areas like Limpopo. So our focus for 2026 is to go directly to the farms and speak with the farm workers. And again, all of this is done for free. Another focus for our 2026 campaign is going to be what we call village-based focus. So what we've done in the past, and we've learned a lot about our conservation initiatives as the years have gone by, but we tried to tick as many of our little boxes as we could. And what we realized, the strategy for this next year is actually to focus on smaller communities and try to tick every single one of those components that makes SECAP necessary. And the bulk of that is going to be focused around the village at the bottom of the mountain. And as you go through the tunnel, you'll see a lot of little villages dotted on the way to Oligstad. That's going to be the focus, because I can guarantee you now, sitting here today, no one has ever gone to speak to those communities about snake safety. Okay, we're going to do that. Whew. Okay, is everyone still with me? The last thing I want to talk to everyone about. This is what I'm the most excited about, in actual fact. Is our culture change initiative, which is called Safe for Snakes. Okay, and I'd begin to describe what the current status quo is in Hoedspruit. Now, Hoedspruit Reptile Centre has always been available for snake rescues. I think I've made that point to death almost so far tonight. But because there's been a renewed interest in reptile conservation over the last, let's say, 5 years, Hoedspruit now has more trained snake rescuers than ever before. So sitting there today, if you're worried about snakes getting into your house and being stuck in the bathroom with a mamba, something like that, rest assured that you are better off than anyone else ever in Hoedspruit in any time. Because there are so many people willing to help, not just the snake park. And so that puts us in a very good situation. You should never be without the possibility of at least somebody coming to your aid if you end up with an unwanted visitor. Okay, that's the status quo. However, we still see so much unnecessary killing of snakes. And that's a problem. Okay, so how are we going to address this? Now, the spirit behind our culture change initiative involves a dramatic shift in conservation focus. Normally what we do when we try to protect snakes is we focus on the snake, because that's the animal that we're trying to protect and trying to preserve. But that's not where the problem lies. The problem lies here, not here. Okay, and so whilst forever in a day, we are always focusing on rectifying the behavior of people and teaching people that are fearful of snakes that there's better ways to do things. We are now going to shift from focusing on trying to change people's perceptions, okay, to also focusing on rewarding people that already do good practices when it comes to snakes. People that love snakes, people that protect snakes. And this is the hugest difference in the way that we do things traditionally and what we're about to embark on. And the inspiration behind this is that the Reptile Centre has been going since 1984. That's over 40 years. People are still killing snakes in our town. And that is because of a lot of different reasons, partly because the town is growing. There's lots of people coming into places like Hoedspruit, which perhaps are not familiar with snakes and therefore, you know, feeling a little uneasy about them. But we definitely need to see this shift from focusing on trying to change people's perceptions to rewarding the people that already are doing good things. And I'll come back to that in a second. Now, for the last 2 years, I've been away from South Africa quite a fair amount. I've done a lot of work in India. And believe it or not, I'm going to India multiple times of the year to generate funding to bring back so that I can renovate and fix up the Reptile Centre. And what I'm doing in India is occupational health and safety training. Can you imagine how boring that is? No offense, anyone here in the safety game. It's not my first love, but it is what is necessary. Now, within the context of industrial health and safety, when I'm talking to people about tripping hazards and slipping hazards and falling from heights and, you know, height work, all of this kind of stuff, what's rooted in that is a large part of human psychology, because you have to understand people's behavior. And through my dealings with industrial health and safety, I've learned a thing or two about psychology. I'm not claiming to know everything, but what I have learned is something called group space. Is anyone here familiar with the concept of group space or group culture? Apart from the people that work at the snake farm. Okay, so group space, guys, is very important, and this is how we're going to change people's perceptions. I pulled the definition off the internet. Group space is the shared social and emotional environment that exists when people come together in a community. Okay, we are here tonight in community. The people that live in town, we are a community. Okay, it reflects how people think, feel, and act consciously and subconsciously as a group rather than individuals. So what this basically means is that the way we feel as a group of people is dictated by this concept of group space. If I compare it to rugby, you know, if you're in a whole group of friends and everyone's is a Stormers supporter, you are more likely to be a Stormers supporter. If you're in a group of friends that is full of Lions supporters, you're more likely to become a Lions supporter. And so the group impacts the feelings and behaviors of the individual, okay? And the individual impacts the feelings and behavior of the group. Now, I don't watch a lot of rugby, but I do get very emotionally invested when the Springboks play, you know? So I'm that guy that's like jumping on the chair and I'm like, come on, Bokke, we can do it, you know? I'm getting very excited. And the thing is that energy becomes infectious. And before you know it, everyone at the family dinner is like, yeah, come on, boys, you know, screaming at the TV. Okay, that's what happens. So the individual impacts the group space impacts the individual. Okay, remember these concepts because we're going to come back to it. And it's a two-way street. Very, very important. Do you guys see, do you think these children are frightened of this snake? What do you guys think?
Doesn't look like
It doesn't look like it. So, ladies and gentlemen, people are not born with a fear of snakes, okay? And when you're born, you're completely open-minded. Your life experience hasn't closed you off to new concepts. Perhaps like the fact that a snake really is not out to get you. And even a black mamba, you can live quite comfortably with one in your garden and never have it ever be a problem, okay? And so this gives me a lot of hope. It means that people have the capacity to change the way they feel about snakes. So the challenge here is that people are not born with a fear of snakes, but fear is something that is acquired primarily from the group space. If I am a parent and I react in a dramatic way when I see a snake, which if you are walking in the garden and you're caught off surprise or by surprise is not something you can blame anyone for. So you're walking, you see a snake, you catch a huge scrick, you jump back, you pull your child out the way. Immediately that child knows, subconsciously, this is something I need to be cautious of. It's something I need to be afraid of. Okay, and so again, the group impacts the individual. Fear and misinformation is often what drive people towards killing snakes. However, it's the most dangerous thing that you can do. Okay, but you can't blame people because we are influenced by our community. So if it is okay in Hoedspruit to kill a snake, and people talk about killing snakes all the time, then it becomes okay to kill snakes, and that's not okay. In my travels, once again in India, I've learned a lot about Indian culture, and I'd like to play for you quickly a clip. It's about 4 minutes. It's not going to carry on too long, but it's from Planet Earth 3, if you've seen it, and it is centered around this village that lives in India, and there are many, many villages that live in exactly this kind of environment. Why this is relevant is that in 2017, the World Health Organization declared snakebite a neglected tropical disease because it affects so many people around the world. And India and South Africa, apart from being split, when the continents drifted apart, there's so many similarities, okay? And one of the best similarities I can think of is the fact that we both play cricket. Okay? And there's a lot of snakes in India. But I have to ask myself, why are there so many snakes in India? Well, it's because of the reality that many people in this environment, and there's lots of people in India, okay? There's over 1 billion, something like that. They rely on subsistence farming. And subsistence farming has completely and dramatically changed the landscape. What happens is you clear away the indigenous forest, okay? So you displace the animals. Then what happens is you start preparing your land because you need to farm. And the first thing that you add after seeds is water. And one of the fastest animals to populate areas where there's a high abundance of water is frogs. Frogs. Okay. Now, frogs are one of the favorite foods of snakes. Exactly. So then you start to plant your crops, and as the crops begin to grow, you create cover. Snakes are secretive animals. They don't like to move around when they're vulnerable and likely to interact with another animal. So as those crops grow, it creates cover, so you see more snakes arriving. And then as it gets ready to harvest whatever it is that you're growing, you attract another kind of animal, rodents. Okay, so now you've got food, you've got water, you've got shelter. And over many, many thousands of years, Indian culture is literally thousands of years old. What India has accidentally created is the perfect environment for snakes to flourish. And because of this, they see the highest number of snake bites in the world. 500,000 people, I beg your pardon, are bitten and affected by snakes every single year in India. Okay, and 60,000 people die from snake bites every single year. How many people do you think die from snake bite in South Africa every year?
12.
Somewhere between 12 to 15. A humongous difference. Anyway, let me play the video. I'm not sure if the sound's going to play. If not, I'll just narrate what's on the screen. So in this village in India, people live alongside venomous snakes. They affectionately call them old ladies. But there's a twist in this tale. While the men stay here in the village where they grew up, the women move into the village where they marry. The lady speaking, she says, I was 14 years old when she first came to the village in the film. And when she arrived, she was incredibly scared. She'd run away in fear. If anyone was near her, she would go and grab them. And this is the feeling that many of the women share when they come to this particular village. She used to feel scared seeing cobras. And one year when she was asleep with her family in her house, they were all asleep inside the mosquito net. It's a very good thing to sleep under. The snake was laying right next to them. She gathered up her things and she made her bed outside and continued to lay down and try to fall asleep. But then the snake came out to lie with them again. And they were up and down like this the entire night. Then they gradually got used to one another and they weren't so afraid of one another. When there's a snake, we just say, darling, move, and it goes away. Not really, because snakes don't have ears, they can't hear, but our old ladies are everywhere, inside, outside, there is no problem. And now it's not an issue. Cobras are like family. I love that. Imagine that. Cobras are like family. Sounds like my kind of family. And now she's grown old, and even her grandchildren are having children, and there's still no problem at all. Cobras are here, and so are we. Newborn babies lie in cots outside, and there's no issues. Imagine that. If a snake comes too close, then we simply pick up the baby, and that's it. Even the kids know what to do. Go, old lady, go. My little brother's sleeping here. Go around him. That's what she's saying. Cute, eh? Okay, so here's an interesting thing, guys. In the country that sees the highest snake bite in the entire world, there's a community, okay, that has found a way to live in harmony with venomous snakes. And that proves that it is entirely possible. And that's not the only village in the world that has this sort of practices. So from a scientific point of view, what I think is happening is as people have learned to correctly interact with snakes, which effectively means don't interact with them at all. If you just leave them alone, if you don't try and catch them, if you don't try and kill them, then the snakes over many generations feel less threatened by people. This village has been going for years and years and years, so many generations, probably difficult even to trace it back. But the point is that it's people's group space that have influenced the individual. And the individual in turn has influenced the group, the community. So people don't kill snakes in these environments and it's working for them, okay? So that is also the inspiration behind our culture change movement and our culture change initiative. So fear thrives on misinformation. What will happen if my child gets bitten by a snake? But there's no anti-venom. Where are we going to get the anti-venom from? Black mambas travel in pairs. They're territorial. If you find one in the garden, a whole team of them is going to come and try and kill you. You know, there's so much myth. They chase you when you run. Or they can catch up to you when you run away. All of that, guys, it's not true, okay? But fear thrives on misinformation. But knowledge, compassion, and respect is going to change this. And so the solution to our problem is long-term positive culture change. Now, how exactly are we going to do this? Okay? Tonight, I would like every single person that is attending here to sign up for our Safe for Snakes campaign. So how are we going to change the culture in Hoedspruit? First, you're going to go to hoedspruitreptilecentre.com. You're going to click on the Safe for Snakes movement tab. Alternatively, okay, you can scan the QR code and you can sign up electronically that way. The opportunities that you have to sign up are at the Reptile Centre, okay? From the HRC website, the farmers market, you're going to see a much stronger presence from the Reptile Park team at the farmers market in the next months coming forward, especially around snake season. Come and talk to us. You can sign up on the day. You can sign up from the various posters that we are having distributed around the town, and also at social events like Nature on Tap. So the first step is to get onto the website. Second step is to choose your pledge and sign your pledge. Now, you can read the pledge. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but basically what this pledge says is I, in my personal capacity, promise never to deliberately cause harm to a snake. I'm not talking about accidentally running over one in your car. Sometimes that's just not avoidable, right? But if you are the type of person sitting here today that does not kill snakes, then this is the initiative for you, okay? So you pick your pledge. You either pick a personal pledge. If you want, you can pledge your family. You can say, my family, the Cookes, okay? We agree that we will never deliberately kill a snake. And what you get in return is a Safe for Snakes sticker. Now, guys, I know this doesn't sound like a huge contribution, but it is, because you're going to take this sticker, you're going to be proud of it, you're going to publicly be recognized for your participation, and I want you to take that sticker and put it on your car, put it on your laptop, put it on your school bag, do whatever you want with that sticker, but display it publicly. And over time, what we are going to see is an increased participation in this program, and before you know it, there's going to be a very sudden dynamic and cultural shift that will happen, where all of a sudden it is now not okay because everyone in our community does not kill snakes, and that's what we want. If you're a business, the process is exactly the same, only this time you're going to click on the business pledge, and in return your business is going to get a personalized certificate of recognition, which I would like for you to display in your window. So take note, nature on tap guys, paddle guys, I'm coming to speak to you after this. And you're also going to get a personalized sticker with your logo. So the first company that jumped on board with this initiative was On Demand. They're the guys that make the certificates and the stickers. And your personalized sticker is going to get your logo. You're then going to tell us exactly how many people are in your company, and what you are doing is you are making a pledge on behalf of your business or school to not deliberately go out of your way and hurt snakes. Now, I know that that is not something that every employer can guarantee, but in principle, what you're saying is paddle is safe for snakes, or spa is safe for snakes, pick and pay is safe for snakes. Okay, this is very important. All right, so participation in this project is what is going to ensure positive culture change. By the way, that's what ChatGPT thinks a community living harmoniously with snakes looks like. Take it for what it's worth. And the intention here is to replace fear and misinformation with knowledge and understanding. And by doing this, we're going to build an enlightened community that chooses to protect snakes over killing them. And also to be publicly recognized for your participation, and please, display that badge with pride. Every single person that signs up to this is going to count towards this positive culture change. And let me just make one very, very important point. We are not looking for your money. We are looking for your participation. We are looking for your money if you want to support some of our other different conservation projects. But when it comes to Safe for Snakes, all we need is for you to sign up and get a sticker. So when I'm finished, and I'm almost finished, I will be standing here. Free posters available on snakes, free posters available on lizards. Please scan the QR code. I'm going to leave it up. Tell me how many stickers you want. I'm going to give you them right here tonight. We'll hang around long enough for anyone who's wanting to participate to receive their sticker. And slowly but surely, ladies and gentlemen, this is how we are going to change the dynamic when it comes to snake conservation in Hoedspruit. Okay, so I'm going to leave that up. If there are any questions, I'll happily take questions now. I'll leave the QR code up as well as our banking details. Should you wish to support any of our other conservation initiatives, just make sure you use the correct reference in your banking transactions. Thank you very much, everybody. I'll take questions. Yes, lady at the back. Excellent question. So the lady asks, in the context of Hoedspruit, what do we do if we are bitten by a snake? Now, I purposely didn't really dive too much into snake bites because it's a bit of a much bigger topic. However, if you are bitten by a snake in Hoedspruit, the first thing that you're going to do is leave the snake alone. Don't try and catch it or kill it for identification purposes. We don't need to know what snake has bitten you in order to treat you, okay? If you can take a picture, do that, but don't put yourself in harm's way getting the picture. So when that snake is disappearing down the hole in the ground, don't grab it by its tail and try to take a picture of it. You're going to get bitten again. And if your traumie is trying to help you, then they are also going to get bitten. So you try to stay as calm as possible. You go straight to hospital. Luckily now, Hoedspruit Private Hospital is 5 minutes down the road, so you go straight to there. We are in constant communication with the hospital regarding snake bites, so should they feel the need, they will reach out to us directly and we can assist with snake identification, we can assist with the treatment plan, and if necessary, if they don't have anti-venom, then we can assist with that as well. Okay, so don't try and catch the snake. Don't try and cut the bite open. Don't try and suck out the venom. Don't put hot water or cold water. Don't put a snake stone, magical snake stone. Don't do any of those crazy things. Just go to hospital and try to be as calm as you can. It's literally that simple. Another question, guys? Yes.
If you drive to the hospital, is it safe to drive yourself?
That's a good question. Is it safe to drive to hospital? So in theory, no, it's not. The worry here is that if you are bitten by something neurotoxic, nerve affecting, and you lose conscious, you could then crash your car and you can end up making a whole bunch of other problems. So technically, it's not safe to drive yourself. I would try to rope in a neighbor or something like that as best as you possibly can. Try to get a lift. Even phoning the hospital and getting the ambulance is not going to take an awful long time. Not these days. You know, the days where we had to go all the way to Tzaneen or Nelspruit are luckily behind us. But in theory, you shouldn't drive yourself. Good question. Yes, lady at the back. Thank you for the question. So the question is how you make scorpion antivenom. All antivenoms are made roughly in the same way. South Africa has been making antivenom, believe it or not, since the 1940s. And we haven't really changed the way that we do this. But effectively, venom milking facilities will take snake venom or scorpion venom. They will milk it out of the animals, just like you've seen on television. It's dried and then it's sent to the vaccine producers in Germiston in Johannesburg. And then what happens is each and every different venom sample, you kind of inject this venom into a horse. Any horse people out there? Okay, don't worry, horse is fine. It's very low quantities of venom. It's not enough to cause a huge reaction, but it is enough to trigger an immune response on the behalf of the horse. And then, so you do this over many, many months, 6 months to a year even. And slowly but surely, the horse develops an immunity, an immune reaction. The horse's blood is then pushed through a dialysis machine and the different components of blood are separated. And basically what the doctors or the manufacturers are after is the white blood cells. That's the immune response of the horse. And that's what you pretty much inject into your body, which is also why people can be allergic to anti-venom. You're allergic to the horse proteins within it. But yes, ma'am, scorpion anti-venom is made in the exact same way. And maybe just a follow-up comment. We are able to import foreign antivenoms at this stage in South Africa, which are showing to be pretty effective against our snake bites. Not all manufacturers are effective against all of the different snakes that we have. People are looking into increasing the effectiveness. But SAVP is back up and running, the locally produced antivenom. There's no word yet on when we will have scorpion antivenom, but they are back on track when it comes to producing the snake antivenoms. Thank you for your question. So the question was, do we ever investigate some of the folk stories when it comes to the myths surrounding snakes? And I always find that with every myth, there's a little bit of truth. But that truth is also, it depends on who's interpreting it. You know, so if I think of an example here, something like, have you ever heard of this myth that if there's a black mamba in a tree and you walk underneath it, it's going to come down from the tree, hang by its tail, and it's going to bite you? Have you guys heard that myth? Okay, and the reason, or to prevent yourself from being bitten by that snake, you have to carry a hot pot of porridge on your head. That way that when the snake, the mamba, comes from the tree, it'll bite into the hot porridge and it'll kill itself and it won't harm you. So you have to put yourself in the shoes of the community, the group space of the people that created that myth. A large part of human interaction when it comes to snakes happened thousands and thousands of years ago. You can't just Google the answer or ChatGPT it. And as people and snakes started interacting with one another, we started to share our experiences around snakes. And the best way to do that, even long before written and spoken language, or written language rather, is to share stories. Now the problem with sharing a story if you've played Broken Telephone as a kid, is every time you share it, the story contaminates a little bit. So probably what originated as, somebody, I don't know, was walking under a tree, snake fell on the floor by accident, which hardly ever happens. That story then becomes so contaminated that it changes the entire context. If you really dig deep into the different myths, you'll see you can almost see the origin of it, but you can also see where people started to get it wrong. And then the exciting version of the story is what ended up prevailing. I'll come back to you. Sir, you had a question? Okay, so back onto snake bites as a topic. Is there any particular occasion which you should bind or bandage a snake bite? It entirely depends on the venom type, okay? So typically, what is beneficial is to create a pressure bandage for neurotoxic envenomation. In Hoedspruit, there's only two deadly neurotoxic snakes. It's the snouted cobra and the black mamba. And if you know your venom symptoms well, and you're able to identify what venom group that snake belonged to, even if you didn't see the snake, then you are able to take additional measures when it comes to snake bite first aid. So if you experience pins and needles, if you experience mostly neurological side effects, sometimes a burning sensation at the site of the bite, if people struggle to breathe, if people have something called bilateral ptosis, which is the droopiness of the eyelids, if people are hypersalivating, if people are struggling to speak, these are all neurological symptoms. Then you can apply pressure bandage, and that does help buy you time. It doesn't really resolve any issues, but effectively what happens if you compress the tissue together using a bandage, if you do it correctly, then you condense the tissue together, the venom has got a more dense substrate to move through, and that buys you a little bit more time to get to hospital. Now, if you do that with a cytotoxic bite, okay, or a hemotoxic bite, you're going to make it much worse. Okay, so you need to know your venom types and the symptoms. Come and spend time at the reptile park. We'll teach you all about it in our training courses. But failing which, if you don't know what has bit you and you're not able to identify those symptoms, then you just go straight to hospital. Try keep your movement as limited. Okay, don't run to get to help. You want to keep your heart rate as low as possible and just get there. That's the most important thing. Lady at the back. Okay, the question is, what is the treatment protocol if you're allergic to horses? Okay, we know that antivenom is made from horse proteins. And what was the second part of your question? Oh, if you're given the wrong antivenom. Okay, so first off, because of the way SAVP makes antivenom, particularly the polyvalent antivenom, there is a chance that you could be allergic to snake venoms. More refined products means a less likelihood of being allergic, but you need higher quantities. If you are highly allergic to antivenom, what people used to do many, many years ago is they used to give you a little bit of antivenom and then kind of step back and wait for the bomb to explode. Okay? If you are allergic, then they have to treat you symptomatically. But the treatment protocol in modern medicine is very different. If the time span and the symptom of the bite suggests that you are in need of antivenom, in other words, it's a very severe envenomation, what doctors now do is they're going to take a full dose of antivenom, they put it in a drip, they open that drip up completely, and they let it run straight through your system, whether you're allergic to it or not. Now, the reason for that is antivenom, even if you have an anaphylactic reaction, once it's in your system, it's working. It's going to do its job. Doctors and nurses are able to manage anaphylaxis in a hospital setting. Not necessarily on the back of a Land Rover in the middle of the bush, but in a hospital setting, and that's why it's important that you go to hospital. Doctors are there with the medications that can be useful to counteract allergic reactions, such as adrenaline, which they usually pre-treat you with before they administer antivenom. And they also have a crash cart. They've got trained, experienced professionals there. So if your heart stops, worst case scenario, they'll get it started again and you'll be fine. What they cannot do, and generally don't do, is give you more antivenom after you've had an anaphylactic reaction. And that means the capacity of the antivenom to neutralize the venom itself is going to be far less. And then to answer your second part of the question, sorry, just tell me one more time. Oh, the wrong antivenom. Okay, very difficult to do in a South African context because we only have two antivenoms. A polyvalent, which covers pretty much the majority of our potentially dangerous snakes, and the monovalent, which is only for the boomslang. So when you arrive at the hospital, they're going to do a clinical assessment and they're going to ask you a whole bunch of questions, and from that information, they're going to determine the venom type of the snake that has bitten you. And the two antivenoms have very different set of symptoms. So the likelihood of somebody giving you the wrong antivenom is very, very, very low. Should somebody make a mistake it's not going to work well for you. There are some risky side effects, like I've just discussed, in terms of anaphylaxis, but really, it really shouldn't happen. It's like cheese and chalk. They're not going to get that wrong. All right. Any other questions? Okay, guys, thank you once again very much for the opportunity. I'm going to leave this up. If anybody wants to know more information, I can talk about this stuff for days. So yeah, if you need me, I'm here. I'm going to also hang around here for those posters. Please don't forget to sign up for Safe for Snakes. Every single person that is sitting here tonight, if you are the type of person that does not already kill snakes, then you are the people that we want on our team. Okay, thank you very much.